Hello, wonderful story lovers, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button to join our growing family of listeners. And don't forget to tell us in the comments where in the world you retuning in from. Now, settle in, get comfortable, and let's journey into a tale of transformation, from soft cushions to sharp claws. In a world where luxury was not just a convenience, but a way of life, lived Whiskerton, a Persian cat of such magnificent fluff and pampered disposition that he was often mistaken for a sentient cloud. His days unfolded within the gilded confines of the Higgins estate, a sprawling mansion nestled on the edge of what Mrs. Higgins fondly referred to as the wilderness, a vast untamed forest that began just beyond her meticulously manicured lawns. Whiskerton's existence was a symphony of soft cushions, gourmet salmon pâté served on delicate china, and the gentle caress of a silver-backed brush wielded by Mrs. Higgins herself. His fur, a pristine white, was a testament to a life untouched by dust, mud, or any of the indignities of the outside world. He had a dedicated staff member, Jeeves, whose sole responsibility was to ensure Whiskerton water fountain always bubbled with filtered spring water, and that his heated bed was always at the optimal temperature. His only struggle was deciding whether to nap in the sun-drenched conservatory or on the silken chaise lounge in the drawing room. Yet, despite this seemingly idyllic life, a subtle current of discontent rippled beneath Whiskerton's immaculate facade. It wasn't a dissatisfaction born of want, for he lacked nothing, but rather a nascent curiosity, a whisper of a world beyond the heavy velvet drapes and polished oak floors. Sometimes when Mrs. Higgins was preoccupied with her orchids, Whiskerton would pad silently to the grand bay window, his emerald eyes fixed not on the familiar rose gardens, but on the dense, forbidden expanse of the woods. He'd watch the birds flit between branches, their calls echoing with a freedom he couldn't comprehend. He'd observe the rustling leaves, imagining the unseen creatures that moved within. A distant hoot of an owl, a fleeting glimpse of a darting squirrel. These small, wild occurrences stirred something primal within him, a dormant instinct he hadn't known he possessed. It was a yearning for something undefined, a feeling that intensified with each passing, predictable day. He would press his nose against the cool glass, inhaling the faint, earthy scent that promised adventure and mystery, a stark contrast to the lavender-scented air of his plush home. The forest, a dark, vibrant tapestry of greens and browns, seemed to beckon, whispering tales of untamed existence that slowly, but surely began to chip away at the edges of his pampered complacency. He was a creature of comfort, yes, but deep within, a tiny spark of wildness, long suppressed, was beginning to glow. Whiskerton's fascination with the wilderness grew with each passing day. The whispers from beyond the glass became louder, more insistent. He found himself spending more time by windows, observing the subtle shifts in the forest's canopy, the way the light dabbled through the leaves, the unhurried grace of a deer occasionally grazing at the forest's edge. His daily routine of eating, napping, and being admired began to feel less like a privilege and more like a gilded prison. One particular warm afternoon, an anomaly occurred. A small, often unused servant's door, located at the very back of the estate near the overgrown kitchen garden, was left ajar. Perhaps the gardener had forgotten it, or a cleaning staff member had momentarily stepped out. Whatever the reason, a tantalizing sliver of the outside world presented itself. A rich tapestry of scents, unlike anything Whiskerton had ever experienced, wafted through the opening. The sharp tang of pine needles, the sweet decay of damp earth, the musky aroma of unseen animals, and the fresh, clean scent of rain-washed foliage. It was an intoxicating blend that bypassed his refined senses and spoke directly to something ancient within him. The pull was irresistible, with a surprising burst of agility, uncharacteristic for a cat of his robust build. Whiskerton slipped through the narrow gap, He expected to find another meticulously kept garden, perhaps a new patch of sun to nap in. Instead, he was met with a riot of untamed green. Towering trees, their branches interlaced like the fingers of giants, formed a dense canopy overhead, casting the ground in a mosaic of shadows and fleeting light. The air was thick with the buzzing of insects and the chirping of unseen birds, a symphony far more complex and vibrant than the hushed tones of the mansion. Whiskerton took a tentative step onto the soft, loamy earth, his delicate paws sinking slightly into the unfamiliar texture. The sensation was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. He turned, intending to retrace his steps to return to the familiar safety of the mansion. But the door, which had been left ajar by a mere inch, had now swung shut, latching with a soft, final click. Panic, a sensation utterly foreign to his pampered existence, began to bubble in his chest. He pawed at the door, meowed plaintively, but the solid wood offered no give. He was outside, truly outside, for the first time in his life. The initial awe of discovery quickly gave way to confusion and a rising tide of fear. The forest, once a distant, romantic notion, was now an overwhelming reality. Every shadow seemed to hold a lurking danger. Every rustle of leaves sounded like an approaching predator. The warmth of the sun, so comforting through a window, now felt intense, almost oppressive, in the humid air. And then the first pang of hunger, raw and unfamiliar, twisted in his belly. It was nothing like the gentle anticipation of mealtime. This was a desperate primal urge. A distant hoot echoed through the trees, a sound that sent shivers down his spine. He saw a pair of glowing eyes, small and quick, disappear into the undergrowth. This was not the gentle, predictable world of Mrs. Higgins. This was a place of unknown dangers, where soft cushions and gourmet food were meaningless. Whiskerton, the pampered prince, was now utterly alone at the mercy of the wild. The first night in the wilderness was a relentless assault on Whiskerton's senses and his very being. The darkness was absolute, broken only by the faint, shifting glow of unseen eyes and the occasional, unsettling gleam of the moon through the dense canopy. The air, once merely a novel scent, was now a chilling dampness that seeped into his bones. His thick, luxurious fur, once his pride and joy, became a heavy, sodden burden, soaking up the moisture from the dew-laden undergrowth and offering little warmth. He huddled beneath the exposed roots of an ancient oak, shivering uncontrollably, his stomach growling with a hunger that was quickly becoming unbearable. This was not the gentle pang of missing a meal. This was a gnawing emptiness, a primal demand for sustenance. His attempts to hunt were clumsy and pathetic. He spotted a beetle scuttling across a patch of moss and, relying on instincts he barely understood, pounced. The beetle, however, was far quicker, disappearing into a crevice before Whiskerton's soft paws could even touch it. Frustration, a new emotion, welled within him. He was a predator, wasn't he? He had toyed with mice in the mansion, but those had been half-hearted games, not desperate quests for survival. As dawn slowly painted the sky in hues of gray and rose, Whiskerton, exhausted and famished, stumbled upon a small clearing. There, a scrawny, battle-scarred tomcat, all sinew and sharp edges, was meticulously cleaning himself. The tomcat, clearly a seasoned survivor of the wild, looked up, his eyes narrowed into suspicious slits. He let out a low, guttural snarl, a sound that vibrated with raw aggression. Whiskerton, accustomed to adoration and gentle cooing, instinctively puffed up his fur, a futile attempt at intimidation. The tomcat simply arched his back, hissed, and then, with a contemptuous flick of his tail, turned away, dismissing Whiskerton as a pathetic, useless creature. The disdain in the tomcat's eyes, more than any physical threat, was a harsh, stinging lesson. It was a stark mirror reflecting Whiskerton's utter vulnerability, his complete unsuitability for this brutal world. He realized, with a sickening lurch in his gut, that his old life offered no defense here. The soft cushions, the gourmet food, the gentle brushes, they were not just absent, they were irrelevant. He had to adapt, or he would surely perish. Desperation became his new teacher. Later that morning, driven by a hunger that eclipsed all fear, Whiskerton spotted a tiny field mouse scurrying through a patch of tall grass. This time, there was no hesitation, no pampered dignity. He flattened himself, his instincts overriding his inexperience. He stalked, slowly, deliberately, his muscles tensed. The pounce was still clumsy, but it was effective. His sharp claws, for the first time, found their true purpose. The mouse, small and defenseless, was his. The taste of raw prey was shocking, a mix of blood and wildness that sent a jolt through his entire being. It was brutal, primal, and utterly satisfying in a way no salmon pâté had ever been. A spark of something new ignited within him, not just survival, but a fierce, undeniable pride. He had taken his first step from pampered pet to nascent predator. Days bled into weeks, and Whiskerton's transformation, initially born of desperation, began to accelerate with each sunrise. The soft, luxurious fluff that had once defined him started to shed, replaced by a leaner, more resilient coat, better suited to the rigors of the wild. His body, once plump and sedentary, became taut with muscle, every movement imbued with a newfound efficiency. His paws, once accustomed only to polished floors, now navigated the rough terrain with increasing confidence, their pads toughening with each step. His senses, dulled by a life of artificial comfort, sharpened to an astonishing degree. He learned to distinguish the rustle of a harmless breeze from the stealthy approach of a predator, the distant cry of a hawk from the warning chirps of smaller birds. The forest, once a chaotic symphony of unfamiliar sounds, slowly resolved into a language he began to understand, a language of survival, of warning, of opportunity. He learned the rhythm of this unforgiving world, the best times to hunt when prey was most active, the safest places to sleep nestled, amongst roots or in the hollow of a fallen log, the subtle signs of territorial markings left by other creatures. He developed a new gait, no longer the high-stepping walk of a show cat, but a low, silent prowl, his body close to the ground, blending seamlessly with the undergrowth. He became a shadow, a whisper, moving through the dense foliage with an almost invisible grace. While he learned to avoid the larger, more dangerous predators, the ingrained bravado of his former pampered life occasionally resurfaced, leading to close calls. Once, he tried to assert dominance over a badger near a promising hunting ground, only to be met with a snarl and a display of claws that sent him scrambling away, chastened but wiser. He learned the value of discretion, of choosing his battles, and of retreating when necessary. He discovered the patience of a true hunter, lying in wait for hours, perfectly still, until the opportune moment arose. The taste of raw meat, initially shocking, became a source of profound satisfaction, a testament to his own prowess and resilience. He no longer thought of himself as Whiskerton, a name too soft, too delicate for the creature he was becoming. He was simply the cat, a being of instinct and cunning, defined not by his pedigree or his possessions, but by his ability to survive. The memory of the mansion, of Mrs. Higgins, of the soft cushions began to fade, replaced by the vibrant, visceral reality of the forest. He felt a connection to this wild place, a belonging that transcended anything he had ever known in his gilded cage. The wild was no longer a threat. It was home, and he, in turn, was becoming a part of its intricate, unforgiving tapestry. His transformation was nearing completion, shedding the last vestiges of his old identity, embracing the new. As autumn's chill gave way to the biting cold of winter, Whiskerton's newfound resilience was put to its ultimate test. The forest, once a vibrant tapestry of life, transformed into a stark, unforgiving landscape. Snow fell thick and fast, blanketing the ground in a deep, treacherous white, making every step a challenge and every hunt a desperate gamble. Food became scarce, forcing Whiskerton to expand his hunting grounds, venturing into areas he had previously avoided. He learned to track prey in the snow, reading the subtle signs left by voles and rabbits, their tiny footprints a lifeline in the vast expanse of white. His once delicate paws, now toughened, endured the freezing temperatures, though he often sought shelter in hollow logs or beneath snow-laden evergreens, shivering but determined. It was during one such desperate foraging trip that Whiskerton encountered his most formidable adversary yet, a territorial bobcat, sleek and muscular, its piercing yellow eyes fixed on him with a chilling intensity. The bobcat, clearly larger and more experienced, had claimed a prime hunting area, and Whiskerton had inadvertently trespassed. This was not a mere squabble over a mouse. This was a fight for survival against a creature far superior in size and strength. Whiskerton's first instinct was to flee, but a deeper, more primal urge took hold. He had recently discovered a small, sheltered den site within a cluster of ancient roots, a place he had begun to consider his own, a sanctuary from the harsh elements. To abandon it now would be to surrender the progress he had made, to admit defeat. Instinct took over. He crouched low, his fur bristling, a low growl rumbling in his chest. The bobcat let out a piercing shriek, a challenge that vibrated through the cold air. The confrontation was swift and brutal. Whiskerton, though smaller, possessed a cunning born of desperation. He used his agility, darting beneath the bobcat's lunges, aiming for its vulnerable underbelly. He launched himself, a blur of fur and claws, not in a head-on attack, but a strategic feint, distracting the larger predator before disappearing into a snowdrift, only to reappear from an unexpected angle. The fight was a dance of life and death, a testament to the raw, untamed power that now coursed through his veins. He sustained a deep gash on his flank, a painful reminder of the bobcat's ferocity, but he also landed a critical blow, raking his sharpened claws across the bobcat's sensitive nose. The larger cat, startled and bleeding, let out a frustrated snarl, its territorial resolve momentarily broken. It hesitated then, with a final, warning hiss, turned and melted back into the shadows of the forest. Whiskerton, panting, bleeding, but victorious, stood his ground. He had faced true danger and emerged triumphant. The pain of his wound was quickly overshadowed by an immense, wild pride, a feeling of self-possession he had never known. He was no longer just a survivor. He was a warrior, a true creature of the wild. And this battle solidified his transformation from pampered house pet to an apex predator in his small, fiercely defended territory. The soft cushions were a distant, irrelevant memory. The sharp claws were his reality, his strength, his freedom. With the gradual retreat of winter, the forest began to stir with renewed life, and so too did the cat. Spring arrived, painting the landscape in vibrant greens and bursting with the promise of abundance. The cat, now sleek, muscular, and bearing the honorable scars of his past battles, was a respected and formidable presence in his territory. His fur, no longer pristine white but a muted blend of earth tones, was a testament to his journey, each scar a story of survival. He moved through the undergrowth with an effortless grace, a silent hunter whose every step was calculated, every twitch of his ears a precise intake of information. His senses were finely tuned, allowing him to anticipate the movements of prey and avoid the paths of larger, more dangerous creatures. Other forest inhabitants, from the skittish rabbits to the wary deer, acknowledged his presence with a subtle deference, a recognition of his strength and his place in the delicate balance of the wild. He found satisfaction not in the superficial luxuries of his former life, but in the raw, visceral realities of his existence. The thrill of a successful hunt, the warmth of the sun on his fur as he basked on a mossy rock, the whisper of the wind through the ancient trees. These were the true comforts, the profound joys of his untamed life. One afternoon, as he surveyed his domain from a high sun-drenched perch, his gaze drifted towards the distant valley. There, nestled amongst rolling hills, was a tiny, gleaming speck, the Higgins mansion. A faint memory, like a half-forgotten dream, flickered in his mind. The scent of Mrs. Higgins's perfume, the feel of silk cushions beneath his paws, the gentle murmur of human voices. For a fleeting moment, a pang of something akin to nostalgia touched him, but it was quickly replaced by the vibrant, invigorating reality of the forest around him. He looked at his scarred paws, no longer soft and delicate, but calloused and powerful, tipped with the sharp claws that had ensured his survival. He felt the wind ruffle his fur, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, a scent far more appealing than any lavender-infused air. He was free, truly free, in a way he had never been within the confines of his golden cage. He was no longer Whiskerton, the pampered prince, but the guardian of his forest, a king born from a pampered past, a creature of sharp claws and untamed spirit. His journey from soft cushions to sharp claws was complete, a testament to the enduring power of instinct and the profound call of the wild. He had not merely survived. He had thrived, discovering that the greatest comforts could often be found not in luxury, but in the raw, authentic embrace of the unknown, where true self-discovery awaited.